all I'm trying to do is say, this is an awesome activity and it's so much better than soccer or basketball or gymnastics or anything like that. Come enjoy it with me. And if you win or not, that doesn't matter. I just want them to be out doing something.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who has restless leg syndrome, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to Running for Real, episode number 78. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode. I am really thankful that you are here right now. I know there are plenty of other podcasts that you could be listening to or doing other things, listening to music, who knows what else. But thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Last week, we talked to Candice, or Candice, as we say in England, Huffin, who is a supermodel, absolutely stunning woman. We talked a lot about body image. We talked about the struggles she's been through as quote unquote a plus size model and why she decided to create a brand of clothing and some running active wear that people can actually wear and feel comfortable in that is not just made for tiny sizes. Candice and I are definitely on the same page for a lot of things. And if body image and just kind of feeling confident in your body is something that you have struggled with, I would definitely recommend you go back and check that one out in case you missed it. Now, today I have an old friend who I haven't spoken to in a few years, but it was great to catch up with. And he was the person I knew I had to talk to about this topic as soon as I read a certain article, which you're going to hear about today. My guest today is Eric Schranz, and he is the host, founder, pretty much everything to do with UltraRunnerPodcast, or URP as it is also known. He is very well known within the industry, particularly within the ultra, mountain, and trail running aspect of things. And, you know, I wanted to bring someone on to talk about, as I have a child now and I'm thinking about future, you know, I do get asked a lot if Bailey is a runner, if she's not if she's a runner now. Obviously, we have no idea at this point, but I often get asked if she's going to be a runner, do I want her to be a runner? And I often struggle with what to say because I have worried about that in the past, whether I'm going to kind of end up pushing her into something that I don't want to do or she doesn't want to do, I should say. And so I thought it would be great to talk to Eric, who has this absolutely wonderful story of his daughter, Sunny, running a race recently. It really will warm your heart. It did kind of go a bit viral when it came out, and you will soon see why. We talk about that. We talk about things that have changed within the trail and ultra world, and just a lot more. Eric is very relaxed, very, fun, and you're just going to love him. So before I ramble on too much longer, we are going to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors, and we'll be right to the episode with Eric. This episode of the Running for Real podcast is brought to you by Aptiv. Aptiv provides audio-based workouts created by certified personal trainers available through a mobile app. New members get 30% off an annual membership by visiting aptiv.com/running for real. That's aaptiv.com/running for real. That's the number 4, running for real. Thank you to Body Health for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Perfect Amino has been supporting me in my training for years now, and I need it even more now I'm trying to get back into running. I forgot how sore you get when you start running again, but at least I know I have something in my corner to help me recover. Remember, coupon code TINA10 will get you 10% off at bodyhealth.com. Eric, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I always love our conversations, and I'm really looking forward to a different but fun chat today. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tina. Thanks for having me. This will be fun.
Your audio sounds amazing. This is very different to some guests who my listeners probably know, and I'm sure you've had the same problem. Sometimes you'll have people on your podcast. Eric is also a podcast host, which we'll talk about in a minute. But sometimes you have guests who maybe haven't used Skype before, maybe just have a landline in some situations. I've definitely had that.
Or not a landline, just an onboard mic sitting in a coffee shop or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, yours sounds amazing.
Good.
For those listeners who do not know who you are, may not have heard the Run to the Top interview I did with you, or maybe have not heard of UltraRunnerPodcast, tell us about who is Eric Schranz.
UltraRunnerPodcast, colloquially known as URP, started about 8 years ago with some running friends and I, which in podcast years is like 100 years, as I understand.
Yeah, very. Mm-hmm.
And you were on pretty early on, I think, Tina. And it was started as so we could learn more about the sport, and we could get people on, and we could learn more about the sport, and kind of have just one place for all of our information. And it's 450 or 500 episodes or something like that, generally every week. Everywhere from brand new runners to the very top of the elites, and physicians and doctors and coaches and nutritionists and just people with weird stories. It's also, we do a lot of reviews and then a lot of a daily news update that kind of paints a picture for the entire industry that's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just for ultra runners, just to clarify that, correct?
Yeah, it's ultra and trail. I don't really, I mean, I write about sub ultra stuff, especially when it comes to like kids and stuff like that, but it's primarily ultra and trail. And I also have an affinity for timed events and just kind of wacky events like that. So I really like to focus on 12, 24 hour, 48 hour events as well. Okay.
All right. I will, definitely encourage people to go check that out if you haven't already heard of it, which I don't know how you wouldn't have. But like you mentioned, the daily updates, I mean, I think that's great, even if you're not interested in those kind of things, because you do kind of go across the board with those. Very interesting. And every day, just some links basically for you to read. So for those of you who are fans of Mario Fraioli's Morning Shakeout, it's kind of the same thing. Maybe not quite as long, just a short, snappy thing. Yep. But, same kind of thing. Links from around the internet, which is interesting. Today included a link of what to do with all the extra spinach you have. When you buy a big giant bag of spinach and you don't use it all, what do you do with it before you throw it away? So that is little before it gets that nasty green slimy stuff and you're like, ugh. Although I have a few times, I have to admit, rinse the slimy ones off and use the rest, but it still feels a bit gross, doesn't it? So what was the best thing you saw that was useful with spinach? Pesto. Making a pesto spinach. Rather than you could make it with basil still, but I've got so much basil right now in the summer that I could just make it and freeze it and have basil for the year. There you go. Okay, cool. Well, thank you. All right. So let's firstly, before I get on to kind of the things I wanted to talk about, I wanted to ask you, you've interviewed, like you said, people from across the board, the very top, all the way down to, as people say, which I hate when people say this because I don't feel like that is the case, but back or middle of the pack runners, I feel like everyone deserves to be out there the same. But, when you do interview these big time people, do you ever essentially fangirl over who you're interviewing, or are you so far past that as you've had so many, guests on the show that just kind of no one's a surprise anymore? I'm generally past that. The exception after Ann Trayson's long, retirement, and she came back on the scene 4 or 5 years ago or so, and she hadn't talked, she hadn't done interviews, she hadn't done anything, and I got an interview with her, and that made me very nervous. With Ann, because she's Ann, because I didn't really know her in person, and she's a little bit quirky, and it's Ann Trayson. For those who don't know Ann Trayson, Ann is the greatest female ultra runner of all time, and that one made me a bit nervous. But no, the others are just people. I mean, that's what's so great about this sport is these are people who you're going to line up with, or you're going to be in line at the Porta-John with. They're just people. Yeah. So then on that note, what has interviewing these people taught you about, maybe to the rest of us or to recreational runners, it may seem like these top of the level people have it easy and things are just always great for them. What has interviewing them taught you? Interviewing them and knowing them, I guess. I'll combine those. That again, they're just normal people with the same problems. And you can speak to this as well, Tina. I mean, that just because you're a well-known name and you win races doesn't mean you're making $1 million a year. Oh yeah. It's no, I mean, I don't mean you directly, but people like this. This is they're just normal. They're just people who happen to be really good at it. And that's it.
And I mean, I've learned more about just kind of the sport and the culture and the way the myriad different ways people can get to the same finish line, but all different ways of getting there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And it's kind of that whole thing of you do you, figure out what works for you. Yeah. And especially as you are working on ultras, that's, I think it was Magda Boulay who I had on once kind of basically said that you have to figure out what works for you. It's, in ultra running, there's so much space for something to go wrong that if you try and copy other people, you're just asking for trouble. So
variables, so many variables. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then have you had anyone come up to you? Oh, I'm sure you've had plenty by now, but have there been a lot of those moments where people have thought, oh my God, is that you?
It's luckily, like, I mean, a podcast is nice because it's not recognized by face, but the voice. Yeah, I'm running. I recognize that voice. I'll hang out with like Jamil and people like that at big races. I'll see him, and Jamil can't go anywhere without people just attacking him and really going crazy over him. Jamil, for those who don't know, Jamil Curry is a kind of a high profile media guy and a runner for Solomon, and lives in Arizona. And Jamil's very recognizable. And I'm very happy that I'm behind the mic. Very, very happy behind the mic.
Although you have had people recognize your voice.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have too. I mean, you're in ads and stuff, Tina. I mean, geez Louise.
I was sitting the night before a race once, and actually this person might be listening, but I was on a Skype call and someone walked past me and then they kind of backtracked and said, Are you Tina Mira? And I was like, yep. So yeah, I definitely had that as well. You might be listening. If you are, hello. All right. So the main reason I thought it'd be interesting to bring you on, other than to kind of catch up and see how things are going, is that you recently wrote an article, which I absolutely loved. It's something about a topic I'm very passionate about. And it was mostly focused around your daughter, Sunny, who is 9. And you also have a son, Van, who is 6. And firstly, before we get on to talking about her, let's talk about him. So you have the 2 kids, very different. One enjoys kind of running at a fast pace, pushing herself. The other takes a more relaxed lifestyle. Tell us about, how that is as a parent handling, particularly someone who maybe isn't as interested in, the competitive and the aggressive driven version of running.
I guess I should clarify a lot of that. I want to make sure I'm painting the pictures right. And as you know, they're kids and they change constantly. So one week they like this and one week they don't. Yeah, Sunny's very, 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 very active. Now, my wife works in biotech, so she works in a lab and I worked from home. Originally, I was a stay-at-home dad, and then URP became a full-time job. So I've been at home all the time doing the majority of the child raising. So I see all these reflections of everything that they've turned out to be as good. Is this what did I do this? Is how much is this nurture nature? How am I involved here? Van's 6. He plays soccer kind of, but he just kind of runs around and likes to hang out with his friends, loves to be outside. Our kids are total outdoor kids, but he doesn't have the competitive, I want to go and run up a mountain type of thing. Sunny does. Sunny always has. Both of my kids have been raised at aid stations. They've been raised seeing me volunteer and run and talk about running and everything. And Sunny is. I mean, early on, Sunny got Anna Frost's book, and really, really took to Anna Frost's book. What was it called? The Sisu Girls book, whatever it's called. And then Anna came and stayed at our house a few years ago, just out of the blue last year for this other reason, and it just kind of blew Sunny's mind. And she ran track, she ran cross country, like on a little team of little kids. I mean, she was 6, 7 years old, and didn't really fit very well. And she was fine with it. She liked it, but it was a long drive and it just wasn't, I don't know. She runs with me sometimes now. So I don't know. I mean, I'm hyper aware of being too competitive because I have the personality of pushing.
Yeah.
And it probably makes me a good pacer and a good running friend. But it's a very real struggle as a parent to not push the kids, and I'm lousy at moderation as well. So it's often nothing or everything, and it's tough.
Mm-hmm. And have you had that urge be even stronger with Van? Maybe saying he doesn't have the competitive drive to want him to be, really. Or you're able to.
Not really.
Okay.
He's 6. He doesn't know anything. He's 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if these kids are 16 years old and aware of what's going on and are just slacking, that's different than a 6-year-old who gets distracted by a bird and wanders off the field.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, I have a 6-month-old who likes to stare at, the leaves. So I can't really say anything right now.
No.
But okay, so, you mentioned just a second ago that you really kind of struggle with with your own competitive drive, wanting to kind of see the best for your kids. And that is a common thing that parents deal with is, maybe we hear about it a lot, don't you? Someone had this dream as a child, they never got to achieve it, and they kind of push it onto their children. But not, what has been your thoughts on this? And this is why I wanted to kind of bring it up, because we can go deeper in a minute. But what are your thoughts on kids being pushed too hard quite early? Resenting the sports, parents really pushing their own things onto them. What's been your experience, and what would you say about it?
Initially, I see that the parents who are trying to live through their kids, and I was a good runner as a kid. I was a very, very good runner as a kid up through high school. So there's no need to try to live that through my kids. All I'm trying to do is impart a love of running in them. I love being outside and being away from people and being on the trails so much. That's all I'm trying to do, is say, this is an awesome activity. And in my preference, it's so much better than soccer or basketball or gymnastics or anything like that. Come enjoy it with me. And if you win or not, that doesn't matter. That honestly doesn't matter one bit to me. I just want them to be out doing something that I love.
And how do you do that with them without, like you said, kind of pushing them?
Tough. It's very, very tough. Van's got a few years. I'm not going to mess with him for a while. Sonny, it's, I just ask, do you want to go running with me? No. Okay. And then sometimes I'll get her something. I'll get her a new socks or shorts or top or something like that and see if that's going to maybe she's going to want to do that. Or maybe we're going to go to Froyo afterwards and get yogurt. Or sometimes she asks me if she can go. I'll say, I'm going to that one trail over by the lake. You want to go? And she jumps at that because she loves a certain trail over there. Other than that, I just, I think a lot when I'm running or when I'm finishing something, I don't want the kids to see running through me as anything like a problem or too painful. So I'm very careful with time, with letting them see how much time I'm spending on running related stuff. So it can always be fun and never, ever using it as a punishment. That's a key thing that I'm amazed that is still a problem. Yeah.
Well, I think most people that, even now, any of us talk to who say, I hate running, what is going to come to their mind? Cross country at school, being used as a punishment. So I'm so glad to hear that. And it is important to kind of see it that way. I doubt anyone listening would be using that kind of methodology, but
I hope not.
You'd like to hope. So I want you to tell the story about, what happened at Broken Sky Arrow this year. And what is that race for those who don't know? And then tell us what happened, just because I think it's such a cool story.
Gotcha. So Broken Arrow is a race. This is the third year. It's a Broken Arrow Sky Race. For those of you not familiar with sky races, so you have trail running, you have ultra running, sky running is kind of a different category. It has to be, I don't know if licensed is the right word, but it has to be a certain level of altitude. There has to be this much of like ridge running. There's certain qualifications to make it a sky running event, and they're high altitude. They're a lot of climbing, and they're usually weird distances, 52K, 44K, 71K, all different stuff. It's not the normal. And they generally take a natural route. It's not usually a contrived route. Skyrunning's tough stuff. And I've a friend of mine, my old co-host on URP, Ethan, is one of the race directors up there, and asked a few years ago, will you want to come up and announce the race? So sure. It's Lake Tahoe is about an hour and a half from where we live. So nice and easy. We've done that every year. And this year they were starting instead of just the 26K and the 52K event, they were doing a 10K for the kids. And I asked Sunny, any interest in running the 10K? And her immediate response was, no, I want to run the VK. So VK is a vertical kilometer, and the vertical kilometer is, as you would expect, I think that race is 3 miles, but it's basically straight uphill. That includes a ladder and some rock climbing and stuff like that. It's very you watch it and just go, what in the hell are these people doing? It's a really, really great event. There's minimal markings. And we said, no, you can't do that. That's just way too much. If Sunny likes hard things, she likes the technical, difficult. And so we got to do the 10K. I shot the race directors a message and said, hey, is just to be sure, Sunny 8 at the time, can Sunny run a 10K? Is she allowed to? Fully expecting them to say, why don't you wait a few years, come back? This is not a regular 10K. This is not a road 10K. This is a tough 10K. Why don't you wait a few years and come back? And instead they said, sure, sign her up. Absolutely. Just you need to have somebody run with her. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, that's cool. Okay. And I talked to my wife about it, and I could run with her. Obviously my wife could run with her. I feared kind of pushing too much. I could see myself in an environment like that saying, come on, let's go. On a girl who weighs 51 pounds. And my wife is the complete opposite. She would sense any fatigue and say, okay, we're going to walk, and this is dangerous. You need to wear a helmet. And, and Sunny just wants to run. And so I said, I need somebody who's not us, who Sunny doesn't know, who's going to be cool. And I just kind of thought of the recent people I'd interviewed, specifically women. I thought this would be an easy thing for a female. And Ladia Albertson-Junkins, who I just interviewed maybe a month prior, really came to mind. She's Ladia's from she lives up near Seattle, and just has a love and a tone in her voice about running and being outside and just movement, and about the impact of running as a kid and as a high schooler that really touched me. And I took a long shot and I shot her a message and I said, Ladia, I know you're running this race. You're running your first sky race of 52K on Saturday. Any chance you could run this 10K with my daughter who you've never met on Sunday? Fully expecting her to say, yeah, I'd love to, but I'm probably going to be tired and I need to catch a flight back to Seattle. And she said, oh my God, I'd love to. So I told Sunny, and I'd never met Ladia in person like you. I mean, we see everybody on the internet or microphone, but in person. So I got to meet Ladia and her husband, and Sunny, here's Ladia, here's Sunny, basically take it away. And so Ladia ran on Saturday, and Sunny watched her and, climbed up the mountain and watched her finish. And this was fun, and talked to her, and they were talking about shoes and gear and all this type of stuff. And I just left them alone. This is their thing. This is Sunny's growing up. Let's let her do this. And my wife was still a little trepidation, because she's looking up at the mountain. I mean, the race literally starts at the base of a ski lift, and you run up the mountain, right up. So Sunny and Ladia ran together. They ran the 10K together. I had no expectations. I said, Sunny, go have fun. Ladia, go have fun. Just do whatever you're going to do. And just don't get hurt or your mom will kill you. Don't get hurt. We actually make her wear gloves. She wears like a mountain biking gloves, fingerless mountain biking gloves, kind of as an homage to Carl Meltzer, but because she's going to fall really bad one time. And I just don't want her hands to get torn up too bad. And so they ran, and it sounds like they ran 2/3 of it or so. They walked, they had fun. They named each other. They gave each other spirit animal names. Oh. She came down with the biggest smile on her face I've ever. I don't know if Ladia or Sunny had a bigger smile on their face. And I was lucky enough to be announcing at the time, and I was announcing with Scott Jurek of all people. And here they come, and it was just it was an overwhelming sense of not completion, but kind of like that just happened.
Yeah,
that was awesome. And the smile on their faces was just. I was so worried that she was either going to fall or come in crying. She's done that before. In a 5K, she'll come in crying because she's pushing, and she comes in crying, and that's horrible to see. And this was fantastic. This was just fantastic. So they had a great time, and they took pictures afterwards and wrote each other letters. And
I just love it.
Yeah. So Sunny wrote. I went in to wake her up 2 mornings after, and she had written out the notes that she had from the run. And Ladia had told her about. I don't have it in front of me, but Ladia had given her advice about when you get to the top of every hill, smile and look around. Don't eat on the way up the hill, or you're going to mess up your belly. Whenever you pass anybody, say good job. All this stuff that she had written down, kind of downloaded from Ladia, and Ladia apparently learned a lot from her because of this just precocious, naive girl running. Got something.
Simplicity,
but it was great. It was just a fantastic Ladia. I didn't think that post was going to go as kind of crazy as it did. And it was people really, I guess, took to it because it just kind of really shows the community on what I asked her, this elite runner, can you run with my daughter you've never met after you do this crazy race? And she jumped at it. So it's just a really nice testament to the trail community.
For sure. And I think also just, a nice thing to show that kids have it right, that pure simplicity of just enjoying it for what it is, not for a time, not for a place, just for what it is. So I thought it just brought a smile to my face reading it. So really cool.
I have reread it. So that's how much
That's okay.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully she will reread it again someday and smile. Yeah. So the notes that you said she wrote, did you say to her, write down what you thought, or she just did that on her own?
No. She just wrote that. She just wrote that down. I probably asked her, what'd you learn? And she went in and wrote all these notes out. And they're fantastic. Yeah, they're really, really cute.
Cool. And have you seen any changes in her since, like more confidence, willing to explore, like anything else?
She's actually run way less.
Okay.
What are you going to do? She's I think she ran a 5K or something like that, but generally she's not really running at all. She runs for soccer practice sometimes, and she'll go run with me. I mean, every once in a while she'll run 4 miles with me, but not really. No, I mean, it's slowed down quite a bit. And again, she's doing other stuff right now. I just want them to be active.
Yeah, for sure. So before you and I came on the show, we talked about, something that you've struggled with as a parent, kind of letting your ego deal with the fact that, yes, you can run with your kids and it's a wonderful feeling. And I'm sure a lot of listeners have the opportunity to run with their kids, but it's hard not to feel guilty about the fact that now you're not really doing the training that you should be doing. So tell us a bit about that. And I'm sure others will understand what you're saying here.
Well, it's a struggle that I should have envisioned, but I didn't envision when we had kids. We said, oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to get to run with my kids and how this is going to be neat. But when you're running with your kids, you're not training. It is an overwhelming sense of love and joy running with your kid. I mean, I can't even put it in words how great it is running behind her. But that means I'm not putting in my good training. And I need my training. I mean, like everybody, not just for my fitness, but to decompress as a parent, as a husband. I mean, I need to go out and get stuff, and finding time for both of those is tough. And I haven't been doing a good job at it. I've been focusing on her. So if she wants to go out now, yes, I just admitted that she hasn't been running a lot in the past month or 6 weeks. So where's my other excuse? I don't know. I don't know, but it is tough to do that, and I'll take running with her 9 times out of 10. One of those times I have to say, Sonny, I gotta go run 30 miles in the mountains. But most of the time I'm gonna give it to her because it's so much fun. It's so much fun watching, and I don't want to sound like I'm blowing smoke up anybody's ass, but learning from the kids. Like watching downhill technique and watching how they do things as an untrained runner. It's so neat to see just how we're supposed to be doing naturally, what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I learn a lot from that.
Yeah. We had a photo of Sunny on that blog post of her running with this just perfect looking running stride as well.
Perfect. Perfect. And that's not from me. She did not get that stride from me. It's perfect. But yeah, I really, really, really enjoy that. And kind of touching base on something else we talked about earlier, Tina, is in today's Daily News, I linked to an article from Amelia Boone about kind of quantifying your years left on Earth. And it sounds all morbid and everything. But if you look at, I'm 43 right now. What do I have left? 30 years, 35 years left? If you draw those out on a chart and say, these are my years left, and then let's look at how many months I have left and how many weeks I have left, I got to make these count. Like I only have 35 summers left with my kids, or, something like that. And it just really, that article really, 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 really touched me. That time, you've got to make that time count. And doing it with the kids is so much more important than me running on my own.
That is interesting, and I will get you to send me that so I can put a link to in the show notes, because I haven't read that and I would love to read it, because that does sound great. To kind of makes you think about things, and it is too easy for us to take things for granted. So what would you say to someone who maybe struggles to find I don't want to say the motivation, but to pull themselves away from training and not see, running with their kids as, I really, my race is really important to me. I need to stick to what I'm doing. Anything you would say there?
I can relate. I mean, it's no, I mean, this is, I guess there's just different priorities, and that's not to denigrate their priorities, but my priorities are me. I mean, I'm certainly selfish. I'm involved in a very selfish sport, but are my kids, and seeing them get onto a path in life, a trail in life that will set them up. And I really think that this will. And again, if running isn't their thing, if it's soccer, or if it's something else, great. I'm not going to go to all the games, but but I just want them to be doing something active. That's what's important to me. Something active, and preferably something like lessons from running that you have to put in effort. You have to put in training and practice, and that is going to show that you have success. And then the other reason I like our community is because it also links up volunteerism a lot. And in our sport, you volunteer and you give back, and it's great for kids to see that.
Mm-hmm. And so if someone hasn't ever volunteered or taken their kids to do something like that, you would say that is a great thing to kind of involve your kids in from pretty early on?
Yeah. Now I have, because it's always been a part. It's always been a thing in their lives. They've always seen that. I would never recommend taking a kid to work at an aid station unless you really know what you're doing and everybody's cool with it, and the other parent is there to take the kid away when they start screaming or throwing sand at the runners or whatever. But just seeing the runners out there in the good and the bad, I think had a very good impact on at least Sunny. It may be Van, I don't know, but I think on her seeing people in pain and in discomfort and trying really hard and carrying on.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I will definitely be taking Bailey to watch stuff like that as soon as I can, but hopefully she is learning on her own anyway. What about kids that kind of show some talent early on? Maybe, in a few years, Sunny jumps in these 5Ks and is really starting to kind of pull ahead. Have you thought about how you would handle that and not allow yourself to kind of push her into doing something?
I have thought about that a lot. And this kind of goes off of, you get the question too, I'm sure. Does Bailey run? Oh, is Bailey going to be a runner? Is she going to be a runner like you? Oh, is Bailey going to be a runner? And I get that constantly. Do your kids run? Or are they going to be runners today? Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I'm just trying to set a good example for this is what I do. And this is, I work hard at this and I get this success out of it. And if they start to see success, if Sunny starts to be good, which there's really no indication that she will, then I don't know. I mean, what I can't tolerate is doing stuff half-assed. And if that's cleaning up your room, if that's putting away the dishes, if that's, racing and just quitting, I have a very, very, very hard time with that. I'm the first to admit that. How that'll manifest itself during a race, I don't know. I mean, I've been to plenty of her cross-country meets and stuff where she was doing okay. I mean, mid front of the pack. And I didn't lose my mind. But, I think it's probably much more of a tendency for guys, especially competitive guys in sports, to really go nuts. I don't see myself going nuts because I'm very aware of that. But and she knows that. There's no indication that she feels forced to do well. I've never ever said, you win and you're going to get this or something like that. It's never that at all. I've never run a race that I've never won a race that she's seen. So, obviously that is not, she knows that's not that important to me because I keep running. Okay,
good. And I think helpful advice there. And I'm interested to see how I navigate that when it comes to it, because
oh boy,
I feel like I might struggle, but at the same time, I feel like this is so important to me that I might be able to hold myself back.
I think it's one of those things like before you're a parent, how is it going to be when you're a parent? You just don't know. And you just don't know. And I just don't know what I'm going to do when we're there. I'm conscious of it. I'm conscious that it could be a problem. So I'm going to use that as a start.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. I'm just going to read something to you that you had, I think it was in that same article. But either way, I found this really interesting, and I'd love for you to explain what you meant. And then, we can go from there. So you said the sport has grown a lot over the past decade. And while we've made some significant advances with inclusion and openness, we're missing a huge opportunity. And then you just went on to say, we've got to focus on kids getting into the sport while they're young, not pushing them into fierce competition, not putting them on unsustainable pedestals, but let's get them on the trails. Yep. What did you mean by that? Particularly that last bit about, not getting them into fierce competition, not putting them on pedestals. What does that even mean?
Well, obviously Mary Kane. I mean, using Al Sal and Mary Kane and those types of runners as examples. Yeah. I wrote that, I think, a day after the article came out was it Outside maybe, or Runner's World, about the generally, 20-year-old females who they're post high school now. Now what's going to happen? Oh my God, now it's just their life is going to fall apart, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know. I mean, that's not what I was referring. I was referring to, not pushing too hard and not having these expectations, not trying to live vicariously through them, but just letting them do their own thing. Mm-hmm. And it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. And
that's what I meant. I mean, I mean, that's, it is the little soccer matches. I live in a little neighborhood. I mean, we go to soccer matches and some of the parents have just lost their minds. I mean, even cross country and track to some extent. But we can't do that. That's not. So, I mean, more to that paragraph was there is no palpable focus, at least where I live, for kids to get into running as a viable sport. The sports where I live I'll admit it, I live in a white upper class neighborhood in Sacramento. And the sports are soccer, baseball, and esports, whatever the hell that is.
Never even heard of it.
And esports, they play video games.
Literally. Okay. Well.
Yes. And that's listed as a sport. And my brain and my mind just hurts when I read that. And track really isn't. And I tell the kids and the parents, do your parents play soccer? No. Do they play, gymnastics? No. Do they run? Probably. So how aren't we using that and getting kids in this sport when they're young, and not pushing it, but just using it as a regular sport when they're young, that they can have for the rest of their lives? And I don't have an answer for that yet.
Well, you can work on it and let us know. Although in England, we actually have the club system, which I feel is a lot better overall for developing the sport. We still had the problems with, like you said, those early 20s, late teens where people would drop off. But at the same time, it is kind of a lifetime thing. And I feel like it is much better. But, I don't see how the club system is going to work here. It never has in the past and doesn't seem to be...
Now, we have clubs. I mean, we have USA clubs. Sonny's running track and cross country on those clubs, but they just...
never gets any momentum from what I see.
Yeah. No, I ran competitively from when I was, I think, in third grade, so 8 years old or so, on a big club. It was we had a few hundred kids, and it was a competitive, good club. And that really, that going into high school running were the best running years of my life in my mind. But getting it for younger kids is still so tough. And we've worked so hard to get all these people, anybody who wants to run for any reason, run. But literally the future of the sport is left to the wayside. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. It makes, I think I use the analogy like trying to make an umbrella out of a bubble or something like that. Yeah. But rather than this bubble, let's get everybody here. Let's get the kids involved too. So in 10 years, this is still a big sport.
Mm-hmm. Do you think any part of that is because of the way we were talking earlier about running being a punishment? Many adults see running as a punishment, so they're only really going to give their kids or encourage their kids into that sport if they see the positive side of it, in which case, you're either a runner yourself or the kid is pretty good at it, in which case they enjoy it because they're good at it.
Yeah. As well as trying to use it as just a supplement, even if you have no intentions of being use this as a supplement to your soccer or to your whatever other sport you're doing. And it's very, very challenging. And I can only imagine what it's like in communities that don't have a strong running culture like we do here. Mm-hmm. It must be very, very hard.
Yeah. Well, I struggle sometimes here in Kentucky. I mean, it's growing, the running community, but definitely there's pockets where, I don't see many runners at all, but thankfully where I am exactly is okay, but definitely see it. So what else about the running world? As you are so honest and open and willing to kind of discuss these things, I know my listeners love to hear about, it's a good thing. Love to hear about, things that we wouldn't typically talk about outside the box. So what else in the running world do you think needs to change and grow for it to just keep improving?
Oh boy. That's a big question. That's a tough one. I focus on really specifically this world, on the MUT, the Mountain Ultra Trail world. So I can't speak broadly about the road running and that, although I watch it, but I don't know. I wish USATF did a better job with trail and ultra.
Do you think it's headed that way?
No, I don't. No, I don't see. No, I wish it were. The question in our world is, in our being the MUT, the Mountain Ultra Trail world, is there going to be any type of official representation, official federation, and or governing body, and that's just not going to happen. I mean, we kind of have the MUT Council with USATF, and we have ATRA, but nobody's really accepted anybody as a governing body, and that's going to be tough. And whether that's going to help us expand or hinder our expansion is yet to be seen.
And have you seen numbers continue to rise, despite that?
Oh yeah, numbers are rising. Now I looked a few months ago at some of the numbers from UltraSign. I've had a pretty good analysis, or Jason Koop did, and it's what it seems to be is the number of races has expanded a lot. 10 years ago there was 100 races or something, and now there's 1,000 or something like that. It's a tremendous number, and it seems that a lot of the trend is, people get into it and say they run a marathon or something and say, I'm going to do a 50K or a 50 miler. And they do it once, they put the sticker on their car, and then they're done. And they don't do another one. And the motivator in me wants to say, well, come on, let's try another one. And try a different type, and let's do one on the track now. And let's try a VK, and let's do all this type of stuff and get into this with me. But then the other side of me says, but I don't really want it to get that big, because then it's just harder to get into races, and there's more issues with this and that, and it's more expensive, and race directors now have to provide all this extra swag for runners, this type of thing. So kind of conflicted on what type of expansion I want, but I'm willing to sit back and see how it grows organically.
Yeah, because I would imagine a lot of the community wouldn't want it to grow too much, because it is kind of fun being one of the different ones that, does something like that not everyone does, like, a marathon that, almost anyone can go do a marathon now. And, there is a lot of talk about what a true marathoner is. I don't personally agree with everything that's said about that, but I get the feeling that the mountain ultra trail community kind of likes being a bit exclusive. So it is going to be interesting to see what happens. Yeah. I mean,
I think it's maybe a small part of that, but mainly just the number of how hard it is to get into races now. I mean, big races, they have wait lists. I mean, Western States allows 372 people in the race, and there's 4,000 people who tried to get in last year. Wow. It's just so difficult to get into any of the races that, and then you see a lot of the people signed up never even bothered to show up to the start line because they weren't in shape for it, or whatever this may be. And there's that sort of trend is rubbing people the wrong way who've been doing this for a while. But at the same time, we want to open up our umbrella bubble, whatever the hell we're talking about, and have these people run. But somehow have it both ways, and it's obviously not going to happen.
Well, it will be interesting to follow, and you will be the source I will look to for finding out which direction it is going to. So keep us posted. We are just going to take a moment to thank our sponsors, and we'll be back with Running for Real 4. By now, you've heard me talking about how much I love Body Health Perfect Amino for recovery. But did you know that if you try it and don't like it, you can get your money back? 100% of it. That's how confident they are in what they are making and how much it will help you to recover. And hopefully by now you know how much I appreciate it, especially as I'm trying to get back to running after having a baby, and let's just say things break down a little bit easier than they did before, so I definitely need them to help me stay healthy. Perfect Amino is made of the 8 essential amino acids our bodies need them to function. And this will help it kind of work as it should be. And as a vegan-sourced, non-GMO, gluten-free, soy and dairy-free product, you don't have to worry about food allergies affecting your ability to recover. So with marathon season fast approaching, give yourself the best chance of getting to that start line healthy as those intense workouts and accumulated miles begin to take their toll. Remember, you can use coupon code TINA10 to get 10% off at bodyhealth.com. What do you have to lose? This episode of the Running for Real podcast is brought to you by Aptiv. Aptiv produces audio-based workouts created by certified personal trainers available through a mobile app. Aptiv makes the highest quality training available to everyone with a carefully selected group of certified personal trainers. You even get to pick the trainer who motivates you best, and Aptiv has an in-house music production team who will create the music playlist perfectly timed to the intensity and pace of your training based on what your trainer sets you. Wherever or whenever you want to work out, at the gym, at home, outside, when you're traveling for business, Aptiv is ready to go. It's like having a personal trainer in your pocket. There are more than 2,500 workouts available on the platform, and you can search by difficulty, music genre, or duration so you can find a workout you love every time. And if that isn't enough to keep you moving, they have a 5K, 10K, half and full marathon training program available. Subscriptions start at $14.99 billed monthly or $99.99 for an annual membership. For a short amount of time, new members get 30% off an annual membership, which is just $69.99 for a whole year of unlimited workouts. Visit aptiv.com/running for real. That's AAPTIV.com/running for real with the number 4. All right, Eric, 4 more questions for you. Firstly, tell us about a photo that you have maybe on your social media, maybe on your website somewhere that doesn't quite show the full story.
This is a tough one. These are tough, and I'm going to give 2 examples here. Okay. First, I don't take social media seriously at all.
Okay.
I'm wide open about my lack of fitness planning, whatever. I'm not posting those I slept here pictures or these trails that I've never run or anything like that. That doesn't happen. But probably I think likely from my postings and my writing, people think I run a lot more than I do. And I don't. And I often feel like a poser. I often feel like I'm representing myself, like I'm running this much. When I'm not, when I'm writing about running a lot, and I'm running my 4 miles of sunny or my 10 miles on the trails on the weekends, but I'm really not running as much as I would like to, or that people probably think I do. If that makes sense. The only other one I've got is there was an app a few years ago that I was playing with that makes it look like you're naked. That blurs out the pictures. And or blurs out body parts, and there's a fantastic picture of me at a beer mile chugging a beer, and it looks like I have no pants on. So rest assured, I was wearing pants. So.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, and well done for remembering that. If that was years ago. Now, you mentioned about not running as much as you would like. Is that time restriction? Is that injuries? Like what is the reason for that?
So I had meniscal surgery last year, and I took a lot longer to come back than I thought. And my motivation simply has waned. There's no other, it's gone up and down over the years, especially since kids, but it has waned a lot. And, I had on my show, I had a therapist who I interviewed, and I said, we're doing a session and it's live and help me with this. What is wrong with me? because I swing wildly from completely obsessed. All I'm doing is tunnel vision, running to no motivation. And it's very hard for me to find that middle ground. And I suspect there's a lot of people like that who have struggle with that moderation. But a lot of it's just other things I'm doing. I mean, I'm starting a cross-country team for my daughter's school. And that takes a ton. There's no blueprint for that. I mean, I'm dealing with insurance and liability and all this crap that I'm, it's taking time being a parent. And I just don't have that. I used to get up at 3 a.m. every day and go on a run. I'd run 20 miles or so a few times a week. And I don't do that anymore because I'm getting up and I'm writing. I'm doing the daily news. I'm making lunch for my wife who leaves early. I'm making lunch for the kids. I'm just life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember specifically when I first emailed you the first time. I think I emailed you at 6 a.m. my time, and it was 3 a.m. your time, and you responded, and I was like, "What the heck is he doing up at 3 a.m.?"
Yeah, I get up early.
Yeah, but on that note, so how do you make peace with that? Because a lot of people listening struggle with that. I know. How do you not feel that guilt and like a bit of a failure for not being able to kind of keep up the motivation?
I'll be honest. I initially turned it around and was resentful. It wasn't a failure. I said, this is not my fault. This is back in my mind, my family's fault that they're not allowing me to do this. And this is my wife's fault for asking me to be home on the weekends, which is complete nonsense. I mean, that was not the way to see this, but I'll be honest. That's just how I saw it in my selfish brain. I mean, my brain that has for most of my life put running and being outdoors as number one. And all of a sudden I had something telling me I couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. I didn't react well. And that was a few years ago. And another episode where I had a marriage and family therapist on, Drew, and he came on and because at that point my wife had told me, she sat me down and had a very serious talk and said, it's time you make a decision. It's running and URP and your training, or it's me and Sonny. And that hit me that hit me just like a ton of bricks. I mean, I'd never had to deal with anything that serious in my life. And I mean, obviously I chose them, but getting over that was, I'm not going to compare it to an addiction at all, but getting over that was a big struggle. It was a big struggle. I'm sure. And now I've swung back in the other direction where, the lack of motivation, where now I want to go out and run, and anybody gives me grief and I say, good, come on, I haven't run in 2 months, or, I haven't been out on a long run in a long time. So give me a break. But I'm a lot happier now. Despite the fact I'm not able to run as much as I am, I'm a lot happier that people around me are happier. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for sharing. It reminds me a lot of what Tom Foreman wrote about in his book. I'm not sure if you've read it, My Year of Running Dangerously. He talked a lot about what his family essentially had to go through and what it took from his relationships in the first time he did a 50 mile race. And so it just reminded me a lot of that, and I'm sure a lot of other people too. But okay. Yeah. That was a long, I think that was the longest question I've ever had in a Running for Real question, but this is good. What about a Running for Real moment for you, a moment that only runners will understand?
I don't know. I don't know. The only thing I can come up with is I'm going to combine it with an answer to your next question about one of your best running moments.
Yep.
And I thought about this when I was taking the kids to the pool. So funny story. A few years ago, so I don't get mosquito bites at all, and I don't get poison oak. I have whatever skin I have. Yeah, but I get tick bites like crazy. I get ticks a lot, but I don't get mosquitoes I don't really get rashes. And I had a rash one time, some weird rash that was spreading a lot. I went to the doctor and he gave me something and I took it for a few weeks. And I had a 50K coming up on Mount Diablo, and I ran this 50K, and I was in shape for it. I was in probably good shape for it, but I did really, really well, way better than I should have done. I mean, I'm at that type of event, I probably should have been in the top 20 or so. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what I did. I was 7th or 8th or something like that. So a lot better than I should have been. And I just thought, this is great. Like I felt, even towards the end of the race, I just kept, it was a 50K, but it was up a mountain. I just kept having more energy and more. I just felt great. And then days later, I looked back and I thought that must have been. So I looked at what I was taking. I was taking prednisone or cortisone or something for my rash. So I'm like, oh, I was doped. I was, I had no intention of it. I didn't win anything. I wouldn't do it again, but it was one of those ahas like, oh, so, I mean, and this is for a freaking rash on my arm.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what something like if you're trying to do that. And correlation, causation, I don't know. Maybe it had nothing to do with that. Maybe it really was my supreme fitness. I don't think so. But that was a very defining moment for me where I thought, this is a problem. This is a problem in that sport. If cortisone cream or whatever it was can do that, then holy cow, we got a lot to deal with.
Well, and especially once you experience it, if it wasn't, originally it would be very easy to do it again because you'd be like, oh, that felt so good. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. Actually, I remember I was prescribed that once when I was in college for an injury. And the doctor said to me, he's like, this is called the superhero drug. So be very careful because you might not need much sleep. You might, he kind of warned me about it. I didn't notice anything.
And it was a cream?
Mine was a pill.
Maybe it was a pill. I don't know.
It could have been a cream. I don't know. But I remember mine was a pill, definitely. But,
and
he did say it was a superhero. Yeah. I remember specifically him saying that, called the superhero drug. So, yeah. But
this episode brought to you by prednisone.
Although, yes, we do not encourage people to take that. I did not take that during my elite career. I just want to clarify that right now. But okay. And it was for a reason when I did take it in college. It wasn't just fun. All right. And finally, what do you tell yourself when you are on the start line of a race?
Oh boy. That's always a weird time for me. It's generally something to the effect of, damn it, Eric, you're probably not in as good a shape as you think you are for this. So it's going to come down to your mental strength. Don't go out too fast, have fun, and smile at every aid station. I mean, it really is something to that effect because I never think that I'm in shape enough.
Unless you're on prednisone.
Geez. I mean, there's been sometimes where I'm in shape and then that's overconfidence and then I blow up immediately. But it's generally take this easy, don't go crazy, have fun. And then Chrissy Mail told me years ago in an interview the tremendous effect of smiling at every aid station. And that's stuck with me ever since. So regardless of how I'm feeling, whatever, I'm smiling at every aid station and saying hi to people. Because that in turn just gives you back. It just gives you back smiles and confidence. And I mean, the science shows that helps.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, Eric, where can people find out more about you, about URP? Tell us a bit more.
UltraRunnerPodcast, UltraRunnerPodcast, all one word, is the site. We've got Twitter. I don't know. Twitter is UltraRunnerPod, I think. And I'm learning how to use the other one, Instagram, but I don't really know how to use it well. I get messages and I go, I don't even know how to get this message. I'm trying to get better at it. But UltraRunnerPodcast. So every day I put out the daily news updates. Comes out about 7 a.m. Pacific every day. And I do about a podcast a week. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 0. And then I've got a team of gear reviewers, Ben, who does, and then I got Sarah last year who does specifically female stuff. Because I mean, we're finally getting into a point in the sport where gear is made specifically for women. And it used to be just, it used to be just smaller men's stuff and it was in pink and purple. And now it's specific. And we can't just say this is what this fits like because we don't have the same bodies. So. Yep.
Well, cool. Thank you. And glad to hear that, of course. Well, Eric, this has been really fun to talk about. And thank you so much for sharing with us and for being honest with us. And, it's just been great to chat. So look forward to following along in the future and keep us posted on the updates.
I certainly will, Tina. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I get that not everyone is interested in learning about kids and not everyone has kids, nor has any interest in having kids. But I thought it would be interesting to hear about, how we can get kids involved without pushing them too far. And, besides, even if you aren't That was such a cute story about Sunny and Ladia. And I just thought it just warmed my heart. And I thought maybe it would be something a bit different and it would warm your heart too. And Eric and I have had a great conversation actually about how there are very few women who are kind of role models in media. So on podcasts, kind of writing articles, things like that, particularly in the mountain, ultra and trail world, which I am not a part of, but maybe someday. But in the meantime, he really made me feel good, just knowing that I'm doing my part to kind of get the female voice out there. And you were doing your part by listening to me right now. So thanks so much for that. And if you are a first-time listener, I hope you enjoyed this episode and will continue to listen to this podcast and consider subscribing so these come straight to you every Friday. Now, make sure you do check Eric out on his website, UltraRunnerPodcast.com. Those daily notes are particularly helpful, and I actually go check them out quite a lot because there is interesting stuff on there. And if you are someone who enjoys hearing about local news or just kind of like enjoys reading about running and things that are going on, I would encourage you to maybe consider joining my email newsletter. I send out an email every Monday. And it usually is about some kind of thought I've had for the week. It gives you a challenge, something you need to do, and report back to me, of course. And also gives you some updates for the week that I have noticed. So if you haven't subscribed to that, you can. It's just one email a week. It's not bombarding you. And you can sign up at tinamuir.com/subscriber. And I'll just spell my name out for those of you who are newer to this podcast. It's TINAMUIR.com/subscriber for that, or you can find me Tina Muir at plenty of other places if you are interested. If you have been listening to this for a while, I would really appreciate if you would share this podcast with your loved ones, with your friends, with your family, with running communities all around. It really helps me to grow, and thank you to anyone who already has. I'm loving seeing all the tags on your social media. I really appreciate it. Now, if you are interested, I also do actually have a Patreon page now available where you can sign up to support me, and I'll tell you more about that another time. I've given you plenty to think about today. So in the meantime, next week we have a wonderful episode coming with a friend of mine, Matt Davis, who is the founder of Obstacle Racing Media. Now, Matt is quite a funny guy. He's someone you may or may not have heard of. You may have remember him from a previous episode I did with him from Run to the Top, but we are here to talk about something really important to runners that is never discussed. We're going to be talking about depression in runners, I should say, and just depression in general, what to look for, what to kind of look in yourself, notice in others, and it's just a really powerful conversation. So be sure to check that out next week, and I will see you then. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.